You going? Okay.
Yeah, we're going.
So I'm David Erickson, and I'm doing English, 10th grade. So what I quickly want you guys to do before we start anything is I want you to think about a place that's important to you and write about it for about 2 to 3 minutes. While you guys are doing that, I'm going to come around, look over, like maybe ask you a couple questions like, oh, where are you writing about? Why is this important? But don't get too distracted. But just write about it. Why is it important? Just write about this place.
Disneyland.
Happiest place on earth.
Yep.
So take about another 30 seconds to a minute to write a couple more sentences and then stop. And so when you guys are all finished, just put your pencils down and look up at me so I know you guys are good to go. Pretty good? Okay. So, would anyone like to volunteer to share what they wrote? Okay, come on, go ahead.
I said, my house is important to me because it is where my family and I live. It is a place that I want to feel comfortable in. I want others to feel comfortable and loved there. I like it clean, but somehow it always seems a little cluttered and less organized than I would like. However, it is a constant work in progress.
All right, good job. Can I get at least one more? How about Disneyland?
All right, it was looking at me. All right. Okay. It's not very cohesive. It's
That's
just
okay.
Thoughts falling out of my head. Okay, Disneyland is important to me because I get completely sucked up into the atmosphere there. There is not a screw that is out of place in Disneyland. One time, I heard this story, Walt Disney told a manager to go explain to the monorail operator that he'd better start smiling or he would be fired. Because, Walt Disney said, we are selling happiness here.
That's good. All right, both of those were great examples, and I'm sure everyone else who wrote theirs were great too. Now, the reason I wanted you guys to do that first is because we're getting into this thing that I like to call triangular detail. Now, in this lesson, this is roughly the middle of a lesson that we would be working on, where you guys would be writing a story, working on a rough draft. But when we're talking about scenes and details and everything that goes on along in a story, we want to work from the general to the more specific. So that's why I call it triangular detail. So I have a handout for you guys to go over, and I also have the Common Core State Standard put on that for you guys.
Wow. Ooh, pretty color.
So, now, when I say working from the general to the more specific, a great example, because not everyone is a huge fan of books, but a lot of people seem to be more fans of television. So, are you guys familiar with the show Seinfeld?
Yes.
Okay. Before scene starts, what do you see? You see the shot of where they are, right? Like, so the outside shot of Jerry's apartment, and then they come in and they start to explain what's going on, who's there, what's happening, when it is, where they are, and why. So they're working from the overall picture of where they are, and then they're getting into the more specific of what is happening. So, for instance, with Yvonne's description of her house, she said it's warm, it's loving, and that's great. That's a good general description. But what about it is loving? What do you see? What do you see? Who's there? What makes it loving? When are we? And why do these feelings happen? So, in this triangular detail handout that I gave you, this is where basically you separate it between the who, what, when, where, and why. You can throw in how, but we're not going to focus on that. So the first one is where are we? It's in the parentheses. So it's given an overall description of detail to let the readers know where you are in the story. So Disneyland. There you go. I'm walking into the gates at Disneyland. That's an overall picture of where you are. When are we? When you're talking about detail and in a story, think about technology. What do you see? So the house, like Yvonne's house, I don't know because she didn't really specify what's around her. We don't know. Does she have a cell phone sitting on the kitchen counter? Does she have not a router? The turntable type phone? I can't remember what it's called.
Oh, rotary.
Rotary. Okay. I was gonna say that. I didn't want to be wrong. So is there a rotary phone though hanging on the wall?
He doesn't get a lot.
I've seen it. When you see those, when you get that type of detail, that tells the readers where they are, when they are, to know what's expected. So if one of those is in the house, you're not going to see someone in the next scene with an iPhone 6 hanging out on the stoop. So the next one would be who and what. So this could refer to the characters, who is the character, or what is the character. You could be writing about animals, aliens, whatever. It's all a story. And it's also what is around. Again, what is around you? What are you doing? And then, again, the why they're here. What's the point of this situation? You're getting into more of this area. And then throughout the scene, repeat what's going on. Or the next scene, repeat what's going on. So, with that in mind, someone who didn't share earlier, can you look at one of your sentences that you wrote and put it into more detail through this idea and through this concept? Just quickly take one sentence, and can one of you you don't have to write it down, just one of you who didn't share the last time, would one of you be willing to share? And if any of you guys, of course, have questions, feel free to ask if there's confusion, understanding, confidence even. So anyone but Yvonne and Pamela, would you just be willing to just share one sentence and adjust it accordingly?
Do you want it to be made more specific?
Yeah, that's generally the goal. How I call this with the triangular detail, it's upside down, I should say. But you're working from that general to the more specific. So if I was taking Yvonne's, for instance, you're talking about her house. We know what it is. She said her house is loving. So what makes her house loving? It's the atmosphere she sees around. When her kids are smiling, when she comes home and she sits down on her brand new leather sofa she bought at Tracy's or another furniture store.
The same place she bought the rotary phone.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So something such as that. So would you just be willing to? Could you read one of the sentences that describes kind of something like that in your sentence already, like in what you already wrote? Would you be willing to share that and then adjust it? Would one of you guys be willing to do that?
One of my sentences was, home is where I get to spend time with my husband and kids. So I guess I could change it to say, home is where my family eats dinner together, talks about our day, and discusses our plans for the weekend.
Yeah, right there. That's working from general to more specific. In just that, you said you were with your family originally, but then you said what you're going to do, who you're with specifically, how you might be doing this at the dinner table. So it's good to set up the general play of where you guys are and then get into it, because it helps progress the story, it helps make it more believable, and honestly it makes it more interesting. You want to, when you're writing a story or doing anything, telling a story even, you don't want to say, you never want to be that person who tells, oh, you had to be their stories. Because then you're stuck right there. What's the part you want to get to? So, now with that in mind, are there any questions before we continue? All right.
So, do you suggest, kind of like the Seinfeld episode, do you want to start it general and then go specific? Or is that just a matter of style?
Well, that's what your intended goal is to do. So, when you're talking about your home, what do you see when you look at your home? What's the picture that you see? Like in Seinfeld, or like in any television show, now that you know this, you're going to notice it, or any book. What do you see? What does the author describe where they are? How do they do it? And then they delve into it. So when you're describing your home, what does it look like? What do you see? Who's there? And then what's around you, technology-wise, anything, animals, pets, colors are great. You want to use all your sensory detail. You want to use that concrete detail. Think about your 5 senses. Your taste, touch, sound, sight. I feel like I'm forgetting one. But, smell.
12.
Think about that. And while you're writing this, work from the general to the more specific. Do that for about the same amount of time, 2 to 3 minutes. And then we might have 1 or 2 people share. And then, because we're doing this activity, because it's going to eventually lead into your rough draft when on the final story, for your final story, I should say, you're going to take this concept and work it in with every scene, every detail that you use to write your story. So, just take a few minutes. Have fun with it, though. Be excited. Writing's fun. Telling a story is fun. Everyone gets excited when they tell a story. At least I do.
What would you say is a linear, handling accurate, most reliable source? Where did the historical heritage on the other, like the, is that in the beginning?
So yeah,
Okay.
you're right on
Okay.
track. So good job. So what's Disneyland got?
I know, I think I'm approaching it backwards. I think I'm starting to add detail at the front, and you want the scene set, but I started to add too much detail as I was setting the scene.
Okay, well, that's totally fine. Think about it this way. Think about when you're giving detail on the label. Think about what you were doing before. What would you just see? You don't know. Imagine you're going there for the first time and you see for the first time. Yeah. So think about what do you see, because you don't know anything about it. So if you're talking to someone that don't know anything about it, you want to give them this overall picture of what it is, and then you want to delve into it.
Oh,
So
okay.
1408.
So let's go ahead and wrap up quickly. Now, someone else who hasn't shared at all. One of you, just one, be willing to share what you wrote with this concept in mind? Okay.
I can go. Okay, so I wrote about an orphanage in Honduras called Hogares Pedro Atala. And this is a place where I go yearly for a mission trip with my church. So I started off by saying that, and then I said it's much more than that. So I guess the why, and then I started to explain why it's special to me. And I went into some detail about what it looks like. I said that there's 4 different houses. There's about 50 children living there. Each of the houses is painted in a different bright pastel color. And so I kind of try to add more detail towards the end.
No, that's great, because just think about trying to describe that with someone like, oh, they're just huts,
Yeah.
or oh, they're just houses. What about this house makes it so special to you? What's the color? What's the smell? What do you see? So it's all good job, you guys. So this is all going to be, again, connected to the rough draft of all your scenes, what you guys are going to do leading into your final draft. So that is today's lesson. So good job, you guys.